Hey everybody, this is Dr. Maples. Today I'm going to do a video about a student issue that I'm working with right now, and that's the process of withdrawing from classes and how that might impact your financial aid or your scholarships. Now, my most popular video on the channel happens to be all about withdrawing from classes. Seems to be something that y'all are very nervous about. And honestly, that's with a good reason, because it actually, in some very specific cases, can cause you some problems. And guess what? It's got everything to do with financial aid and scholarships. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to figure that all out so that you can figure out what you need to do on your end. As always, I'd appreciate it if you'd subscribe to the channel, and you always feel welcome to leave me comments and questions below. We got a lot to do today. Let's get started. So to talk about how withdrawing from classes can impact your financial aid and your scholarships, I need to make sure that we're on the same page about what I'm talking about here. First off, financial aid is anything that you're expected to pay back. Common examples of that are going to be your federal student loans and your private student loans. If you're expected to pay it back, I'm going to call it financial aid here. Now, if they're giving you the money and they don't expect you to repay it, that's what we call a scholarship. That includes stuff that can come from organizations, it can come from your state lottery system, it can also just be something that's part of the Pell grant system. These are all examples of money that's being given to you so that you can go to college. So if you have to pay it back, it's financial aid for this video, and if you don't have to pay it back, it's a scholarship. All right, got that set? All right, let's move on. Now, in my experience, there's really 4 common issues where I see a withdrawal impacting financial aid or scholarships. The first one is that you become part-time because you withdrew from classes. Now, part-time means that you're getting less than 12 hours at pretty much any American university. There's a couple of systems where they use different credit hours, and you'll want to double check this with your university's website. But 12 hours is generally considered full-time for undergraduates. I think it's 9 hours for grad students. If you drop below full-time status, it actually can impact your scholarships and your financial aid, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. The next one is that you're withdrawing really late in the semester after the withdrawal deadlines. This is where you get what's called an FW or a WF. You're recorded as withdrawing from the class, but it's also recorded as an F because it's so late in the semester. FYI, if you've missed all the withdrawal deadlines, I actually don't recommend taking a WF. Just write out the course and hope that you get a D for done. Sometimes you get lucky. You can always retake that course in the future too and get an A for awesome, right? Or B for bye, or C for see you later. Next one is that you actually have scholarships and financial aid. If you don't have scholarships or financial aid, you don't need to watch this video. You need to go watch my other video on withdrawing from classes. You'll be good to go. Finally, if you're withdrawing from all of your classes, that's a tad bit different than being full-time or part-time. So we'll want to keep that in mind. Let's engage how these matter, first for your financial aid and second for your scholarships, if you may have those. Now remember, financial aid is talking about money that you knew you'd have to pay back eventually. And that's going to be really 2 things. It's going to be your federal student loans, or that's going to be private student loans. And in both of these, going from full-time status to part-time status can sometimes be a problem. It's less an issue with federal loans. Once the semester is underway, you've passed the add-drop deadline, you're a couple weeks into the semester, dropping from 12 to 9 hours or 12 to 6 hours, for example, you're generally going to be fine. You're generally not going to be asked to pay money back or to give money back unless your university has some specific policies about that, or if they bill at the end of the semester. I've heard that is a weird case, but that's never applied to any of my students. But generally you'll be fine as long as you're 6 hours or more. With federal loans, if you go below 6 hours, that actually can be a problem and trigger some automatic repayment, especially if you're withdrawing from all of your classes. Then you basically can expect you're going to have to repay it. With private loans, it really depends on the loan originator. The people who wrote the contract and gave you the money to go to college include very specific terms in the contract for your loan. And this is where you're going to have to either go back to that document, talk to your financial aid office, which you can also do for the federal loans as well, or you can contact your loan originator and ask what would happen if you go from full-time to part-time. And remember, part-time can also be your part-time more than 6 hours but less than 12 hours, or your part-time you have less than 6 hours. It's kind of a weird designation of part-time. I guess there's 2 kinds of part-time in the student loan world. Another one that creates an issue is where you're part-time or you're withdrawing from classes and it starts to impact what we call satisfactory academic progress. This is a vague policy that varies by college and university as well as private loans, but basically is tracking how you're performing up to a particular point. It's looking at things like the number of hours you've completed based on the hours that you've attempted, and it's also looking at your GPA. Sometimes they're checking in at particular times too, say after 1 year, after 3 semesters, whatever it may be. This is where you want to double check with your financial aid office and make sure you're making satisfactory academic progress. Now, if you're getting A's in all of your classes and you withdraw from a class, it's probably not going to be a big issue, particularly with the federal loans here. But if you're failing a lot of classes and you're withdrawing from a lot of classes, this can be something that you want to keep in mind, and it could be a problem on the horizon. It also can make you lose access to those student loans in the future. And that's the situation too, where if you don't have the student loans to go to college, you stop college, and then you also kick in that repayment process. Another one where you can have an issue here is the late W's. That's where you pass the withdrawal deadline and you're getting the WF or FW. Again, in that situation, strategically, I encourage students to stick it out and hope for a D for done just out of luck. Talk to the professors, see what you can do. In fact, I've got videos up on what to do when you're failing a class or having problems in a class. Finally, if you're fully withdrawing from all of your classes, you can actually expect that you're going to have to basically repay that money that you've borrowed, especially if you're doing it before the add drop period. But even if you're a little bit later into the semester and you withdraw, you can expect repayment. Now, there's some exceptions to this. Things like medical withdrawals are different from just I'm withdrawing just because. I've also got a video up on medical withdrawals if you'd like some more advice on that. But these are 4 areas where if you're getting student loans of any kind, we have to be worried about changes with withdrawing in a class. Now remember, scholarships include money that's being given to you so you can go to college and you're never expected to repay it. This could include things like state lottery scholarships. This could include the Pell program with the federal government and academic scholarships you may have earned. Now, with these kinds of scholarships, withdrawals can still create issues, and we want to think about those. First off, one of the big things I see, especially with like the state lottery scholarships, is that they give you a certain number of attempted hours. Now, a college bachelor's degree requires basically 120 hours, and the state lottery scholarship may say, hey, you have 135 attempted hours that you can go and we'll give money for your student tuition. This is generally more than enough to complete it, but if you need to drop a couple of classes, it starts to impact your attempted hours. And an attempt basically means that after that add deadline, you are enrolled in the class. Congratulations, you're attempting the class. This can be a big issue for you because you could run out of student funding in your senior year. Generally not going to be a problem, but if you're withdrawing from multiple classes, it is something that you want to keep on the radar. Another one too is that going from that full-time to part-time status can cause you to lose certain scholarships. This is one of those things that there's so many different kinds of scholarships out there that you really need to check with your loan originators. This especially applies to university and college grants and scholarships that are given to you where they reduce the price of your tuition. You really want to read the fine print, talk to the financial aid office to see if suddenly going down to part-time status is going to remove your scholarship for the future. This is where taking an F or even hoping for a D for done may be perfectly fine because your GPA will still be good enough at the moment that they check it that it won't be a problem, and you can always retake that class if you have to and get an A in it the next time around. Although I generally recommend against retaking classes unless you absolutely have to. Got a whole video up on that if you're interested. Now, I will say with scholarships, late withdrawals, the FWs are the worst because, well, honestly, there's just not a good reason to take them. Again, instead of withdrawing from the class after the withdrawal deadlines and taking the FW where it counts as an F towards your GPA, I tell students to stay in the class and hope for a D for done. Talk to your professor, see if there's anything you can do to get a passing grade in that class so that you don't have to lose those attempted hours because it's already going to count against your GPA. And again, if you're fully withdrawing from all of your classes, you generally can expect a couple of things. You're probably going to lose your scholarship, and under very specific situations, you may actually be expected to pay some or all of it back. More likely, you're just going to lose your scholarships. Now, in those situations, you can often get your scholarships back, and every scholarship program is going to have some specific processes for how you would go through requesting that. Again, this is where something like a medical withdrawal from all your classes is going to be different from I'm just withdrawing from all my classes for a general reason. So this is something that you want to think about when you start to withdraw from a class and you have a scholarship. Not sure what to do? Here's my big advice. First off, are you going to still be full-time after that W? Then go ahead with it. It's going to be fine. Even if you have student aid, scholarships, whatever, and you withdraw from a class, but you're still full-time, there's really not a situation where you aren't going to be just fine in the end. Just keep an eye on your GPA, try not to withdraw from classes in the future, and you're good. If you got more questions about W's, you can always leave them in the comments below. Now, for the rest of us, first off, check your W deadlines. Talk with your advisor, check with your university's website. Find out when your final opportunities to withdraw from a particular class are. With many universities, you'll see there's even fee differences. You know, you withdraw by this date and you get like a 50% refund on the amount that you paid. Withdraw by this date, it's 25%. Or withdraw by this date, it's a 0%. Make sure, though, you don't get into that WF territory because that doesn't do anyone any good. Now, when you have specific questions, you can always contact your loan originators, but you can also contact your university. Generally speaking, your financial aid office is going to have seen any possible scenario that you can imagine. I have seen universities that actively discourage students from withdrawing from classes. I take a different perspective on that, so your miles may vary. But for me, most of the time, you can get good advice from your university or college's financial aid folks. If you took out scholarships, however, from organizations, just talking to the loan originator, the person who probably contacted you to let you know you got the scholarship, can get some answers very, very quickly. And it's going to be from the source, so you don't have to worry about it. Finally, you want a trick here that I like to see my students use? Depending on when you're withdrawing from classes and if your university or college allows it, you'll often find that you can enroll in a class late in the semester that either hasn't started yet or can start late and you can catch up. A good example of this is my university uses two different parts of the semester as part-time 8-week classes, so like you can take a 3-hour class in the first 8 weeks and a 3-hour class in the second 8 weeks. And the cool thing is that if you withdraw from a class during the first 8 weeks, you can simultaneously add a class for the second 8 weeks and kind of never fall below full-time status. Now, I do suggest adding the class before you withdraw from the other class, so litigiously speaking, you never dropped below full-time status, just to be careful. But this can actually be a really great trick to get around that. Internships can also be another great opportunity if your university provides those, and also directed researches. You can work with a professor on a particular topic, try to publish a paper in one of their classes and so forth, and generally speaking, they can add those late in the semester. So if dropping below 9 hours or 12 hours is going to be a problem, you can add a class to replace it and you'll be just fine. See, things are going to be fine. You've got this. Be thoughtful, be informed, make sure that you know what you're doing, and you're going to be fine. And if you're not sure, contact your financial aid office, contact your loan originator, or leave me comments below. I love chatting with you. It's one of my favorite things to do. That's all we got today. If you got any questions or a video I can make for you, let me know below. Otherwise, we'll see you next time. Take care.